Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show, where your hosts, Ben and Ethan, discuss the latest tech news at bedtime. We've got a wonderful show started for you tonight, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's go ahead and start with Meta and employees being laid off along with others. So,
Yeah.
Ben, you brought this up. Go ahead and get us started with it.
Yeah. At the end of September, in one of our older podcast episodes, we talked about how Meta had a 30-day policy. They gave a lot of people 30-day notice that they're going to be letting him go. Well, this is all coming to fruition now. And Meta is laying off over 11,000 employees. 11,000.
Jeez.
That is a ton of people going without jobs. And that's difficult because right now a lot of people are doing it. There's not a lot of hiring going on, at least not what it was like a year ago.
No,
And
it's amazing how everything has just changed this year
dude, yeah, crazy in
in
like
so
six
many
to 8 months.
aspects.
Yeah, yeah, for real. It's scary, right? It's really scary seeing this. Um, and Meta's not the only one doing it. We saw Elon with Twitter, Lyft, the driving, like Uber competitive. I don't know what you call that. I'm just blanking right now. But the essentially the taxi car company Lyft, they're laying off employees as well. They announced today, Thursday, that they're laying off employees, and Snap laid off a bunch of employees this month in November. I think it's a total. I saw another article that said as of now, a total of 26,000 employees have been laid off by tech,
Wow.
and pretty crazy. This is Meta. This is 13% of their workforce that they're laying off, which is a huge chunk. Um, a lot of people, not a lot of people, an analyst said that this isn't just from like pandemic hiring. This is like 5 to 10 years in the past of just build up over um, Meta's aggressiveness and trying to make it in the metaverse. And, they're throwing a lot of things at the wall and not a lot is sticking. And as a result, we're in this recession. Things are getting tight. The bottom line is getting tighter. And so they need to let go of people that they don't need. And they gave them 30-day notice and now they're being let go. So it's really crazy. And again, they're not the only ones doing it. There's other people doing it. I just highlighted Meta because they're a huge chunk of it. So really sad to see and pretty wild. I don't think this will be the last of it. I only
No,
think this will be the beginning, but I don't know how long it'll be. What are your thoughts here?
I agree with you. I think this is just the beginning. I mean, last week we talked about how Meta is really investing a lot into the metaverse, and seems like that's what they're really focusing their investment efforts on. And a lot of, based on what this article was sharing as I was reading it, seemed like a lot of these cuts come from the departments where their investment is not really high at the moment. So
Yeah.
unless it's like directly related to the metaverse, it seems like that's where they're trimming some of their workforce. I mean, it's crazy to think that 13% of their workforce is going without a job right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with like how we are in this economy right now and a lot of other tech companies, it's going to be a lot more challenging than it has been in the past for these individuals to get a job at another company, just because it seems like a lot of other companies are in this starting to lay off their workforce and reducing their hiring and kind of having a hiring freeze essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And if anyone who's listening to this is affected by this or impacted by this, or if you know someone that's impacted by it, leverage your network, leverage the people you know. Ask, don't be afraid to ask. Hey, I was let go due to economic reasons, and would be willing for any leads on job opportunity. Leverage your network. Your network is phenomenal. It's one of your biggest assets you can have. So That'd be my recommendation. And again, if you know someone that's impacted, please look out for them. Try and find opportunities for them. You scratch someone else's back, they'll most likely scratch your back in the future, and try and build those bridges. So hopefully, well wishes to those that are impacted by this. I feel so bad. It's pretty gnarly. So
Yeah, I feel extremely bad too. One of the great things, about having these skills in the tech industry is that they can transfer to pretty much any industry there. So, along with that, leveraging network,
yeah,
keep up on those skills, and those will definitely be able to translate into anything, if that's another option for these individuals. You know,
yeah,
it's a little bit, I guess it's a little nice that Meta is giving somewhat of a severance package. I think I was reading that it was about up to 16 weeks of pay plus 2 additional weeks for every year of service
yeah,
that with no cap on that. And they are going to be paying out all remaining PTO, and they're going to cover health insurance for 6 months, which I
that's
think that's
huge.
that's huge because you know me being in the healthcare industry right now in the legal field, I see these rising healthcare costs and a lot of our operating costs just to maintain healthcare for individuals. And it's no wonder that health insurance is continuing to increase
Yeah,
and premiums for individuals, which is sad. So that's nice that they are going to be doing that. And definitely that won't make up for being laid off. However, it's a little bit of something.
yeah, exactly. That's actually somewhat of an impressive severance package, in my opinion. Was it 60 months? You said 6 months?
6 months. Yeah.
6 months. Yeah, 6 months. That's pretty good. And then additional months for every year you work, right? And again, I say that and like it sucks being laid off, but hopefully that gives enough buffer to find something.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so yeah, crazy stuff going on in tech right now with employment, things like that. Yeah. So speaking of which, crazy things going on in tech. Anyone who's interested in crypto and technology with currency, crypto has been absolutely wild this last week. So
Yeah.
there's a huge platform.
Super wild.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Huge platform, FTX. They trade FTT coin, and so a while back, Binance had an investment in FTX. They pulled out because a lot of people thought, oh, they're competitors in the game. Binance didn't want to be a part of the stockholders of FTX, whatever it might be. That was a while ago. But this last week, Binance is the biggest platform for crypto exchange. And Binance said, hey, we're selling off all of our FTT coin. We're selling it. We don't want to deal with it. We just don't want it. And a lot of people, well, the result of that was it caused panic because people look to Binance, they look to what they do, they look at what coins they're buying, obviously, because they're a huge impact in crypto. And so a lot of people started pulling out of FTX and started cashing out their FTT. Okay. So it caused this huge collapse. Yeah. So a lot of people have said Binance did this on purpose. But the CEO, Changpeng Zhao, who's CZ, he goes by CZ. He's like, no, I don't try and fight or compete. I just try and build. Like that's my main goal. We didn't do this to try and destroy FTX. We didn't do this to try and, cause what happened. Granted, we've seen big players in the game, whenever they make a tweet like this, it has massive impact. And I'm sure Binance knew about it. So essentially what happened is everyone starts pulling out, they start cashing out from FTX. FTX cannot provide the cash. They can't give all the cash that everyone's trying to pull out right now. As a result, they're going bankrupt, right? They were going to have a buyout from Binance. Binance was going to buy them out for pennies on the dollar as a result. And that was over the weekend or at the beginning of the week, and FTX owner said, "Hey, your cash is safe. Binance is gonna buy us out, and you guys are gonna get your cash." Well, Binance just announced, "Hey, we're not going through with the purchase agreement because there's some foul play here from FTX with what they're doing, and there's some big investigations happening, and we don't want to be a part of that. So we're not going through with the purchase." And it is causing essentially panic. A lot of people pulling out of crypto because of it. It's pretty wild, and this goes along with the deregulation of crypto because there's not a lot of regulation. It's the Wild West, and so a lot can happen. And we've seen this before in crypto. We've seen this happen quite a bit actually, where people just pull the rug out, and it's really scary. So as a result, it's impacted everything in crypto. Ethereum's down, Bitcoin's down, etc. If you believe in those, then maybe this is a discount opportunity to buy. But no one really knows what's happening with crypto. No one really knows where it's going to go because this continues to happen where like rugs are pulled. It's just devaluing the trust that the market has in crypto. At least that's my opinion. I start to trust it less and less. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on this? Like, what do you think about crypto? Do you think it'll bounce back? Do you think people are going to continue to invest in it? Or do you think it's just going
So
to die in the end?
I'm I'm a huge believer in crypto. I think like this is kind of the wave of the future, essentially. However, it's like really early in it, it's in the really early phase. And right now it's super risky. And I like a little risk. And I'm kind of the opinion, as it's down, this might be a good time to start investing a little bit more into it to get it at a discount. I think, it said that Bitcoin was at what, 16,000,
Yeah,
which is insane
that is wild. That is
considering like
so crazy.
last year it was at 60,000.
Yep. Yep. 60K.
That is just a huge drop. And I never thought that I would see Bitcoin get down to this low in my lifetime ever again. And every time,
Yeah.
like, when I, like all last year when I was looking at it, I kept kicking myself, like, why didn't I buy it when it was at 3,000,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, this is, it's a little scary to me because, I've invested a little bit into cryptocurrency, and just seeing that drop over just the last couple of weeks has been a little scary. However, I think this is now a good time to be get those discount buys and get it at a lower price and really start getting more into it. However, I do
Yeah.
think it's not gonna I don't think it will recover in the same way that your normal stocks will recover.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like the regular stock market, that has kind of a pattern on once we get into a recession, how it grows again. Cryptocurrency, to me, it doesn't seem to follow that same exact pattern.
Mm.
And it's a little bit more risky as to whether it will rise at the same level or around the same time as the stock market.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually agree with you. I think just because the crypto market's new, it doesn't have as much of play as like the stock market does. It's just so volatile. You just never know what's going to happen. Um, and sometimes it does mirror the markets, but other times it doesn't. It doesn't at all, and that's why it's so weird. But you only, not you only, but if you want to make more money in stocks and crypto and things like that, you have to put money in riskier options.
Yeah.
Right? The bigger the risk, the bigger the growth. And if something is really, really safe, it's not going to grow that much. At least not to the rate that you think you want it to become big and rich, right?
Right.
Um, that's why a savings account has like pretty much nothing on the return.
Garbage returns.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so safe, right?
Mhm.
Savings account, it's safe. But essentially you're losing money on a savings account
Yeah.
with the rate of inflation.
Yes.
But anyway, the point is it's very risky. And every person they just need to weigh their own risk tolerance. You just need to gauge your own risk tolerance, do your own research, try to do as much research as possible. And when I say research, I don't mean don't read people's tweets as research. Right?
Yeah, never go off emotion when it comes to investing.
Yeah, and everyone's just tweeting garbage. Like, let's be real. Like, it's just crazy. So anyway,
Yeah,
yeah,
like I preface my opinions. I'm not an accountant. I'm an attorney. I can't give you any investing advice. But one thing that I can say, just don't invest on your emotions. And
yeah,
that's one solid advice that I think that I can say for sure
yeah.
without violating anything.
Yeah, if you're feeling FOMO on investments, like all your friends got in and you didn't get in, you're too late. Like,
Yeah.
you're too late. Don't jump on, because
No, find another wagon to jump on.
yeah. And get on the wagon before it starts moving.
Yes.
Like, you'll jump on a moving wagon, you get crushed by the wheel. That's gonna happen.
Yes,
So
for sure.
yeah. Anyway, I'm glad we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
So
Speaking
anyway,
of wagons,
yeah, go ahead.
crashes. Elon Musk is ending Twitter's remote work here.
Yes. This is another interesting
Elon
thing.
is just on a roll.
Yeah, Twitter, he's transforming Twitter. But he's done this before. And he's even talked about how he hates remote work and how he doesn't think it's productive, he doesn't think it's efficient. The one thing that gets me here, okay, and my background, I work public accounting, so I've worked long hours where like my weekly minimums were at least had to be 55 hours, like booked time. But if you scroll to the very top, for the layman, we work 40 hours. Okay. And that's what I do now. I try and work 40 hours. Sometimes I work overtime, whatever. But I love this. The second line here, at the very end of the second line, underneath the title, it says Elon Musk reportedly told Twitter employees remote work no longer be allowed. They would be expected to be in office for at least 40 hours per week. It's like the bare minimum is 40 hours. That's not the maximum. That's the bare minimum.
That's the bare minimum.
You need to be in office at least 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or however we want to split it. I don't know if he's flexible on that, but at least 40 hours per week. And to me, that's like, well, crap. That means every week I'm working at least 40 hours a week in office. And if I want to work from home, I'm going to be working overtime. And that means I'm working overtime at home. There's no like 50-50, whatever it might be. It kicks in immediately. That's the other thing. It kicks in immediately. He wants this to happen immediately. He's never done this. He has done this before. This isn't new. Okay.
Yeah, this is typical Elon.
Yeah.
Elon stuff. I mean, I remember when, like, at the end of the pandemic, an email to his executives at Tesla was, all executive leadership is expected to come work in the office or find a new job. You either work in the office, rather than pretending to work at home. Was I think his quote for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. This isn't anything new. And, with all the changes that he's making, I really think that he's trying to reshape company culture and, in his opinion, get rid of the toxicity that is at Twitter.
Yeah.
He got rid of the entire executive leadership team and is the chief twit and de facto CEO of this.
I love it.
So, I love what this article said is that, that the road ahead is arduous and it's going to require intense work to succeed. So I think a lot of him doing this is really him wanting Twitter to succeed and to change. And that is going to require a pretty big uplift for that. I think he's kind of treating this as a new startup. And usually with startups, you are working long hours, you are having to put in the overhead just to get it up and running. And, he said the absolute top priority is finding and suspending any verified bots, trolls, and spam.
Nice.
So,
I kind of understand where he's coming from though. Um, I work from home 100% of the time, and I know you work from home a lot of the time as well. And from someone who works in a completely remote company, I will say that it's difficult for me to grasp company culture, and sometimes it's very difficult for me to really be driven and to stay focused and to really be passionate about what I'm working on. Sometimes I have days where I'm like, I don't want to work. I don't want to do this. This is so frustrating. Like, I'm just here on my computer in my office space every day. I'm a hermit. Like, the only time I go out is to like go to the grocery store or go to the gym. Like, and I've been on a business trip early this week for the first 3 days of the week, and seeing my boss in person, my colleagues in person, my clients in person, it was very invigorating. It was rejuvenating, and it gave me a new sense of passion to work because it became real. It became contextual. It was like, oh my gosh, this is the person that is my boss. This is only the second time meeting my boss in person, which is crazy. And I've been here for a year. And yeah, like I said, it just kind of gave me this new desire to like really deliver and show that I'm a strong employee, I'm capable, whatever it might be. And I know I'm going to get back into that feeling of complacency, potentially lack of passion, lack of culture, because I'm 100% remote in my own office. And maybe that's on me. Maybe it's I need to come up with some kind of process or procedure or habit that allows me to be in that focused mental state. But I think going to a location, being around like-minded individuals who are all focused on the same goal motivates you, keeps you focused, keeps you driven. It just helps promote that culture. And I can fully understand why Elon's doing this. Do I agree with it? I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence. Do I
yeah.
understand why he's doing it? 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence this as well. My previous job that I had a couple of years ago, when the pandemic hit, we all went 100% remote, and we had our CEO come and say, "Hey, I want everyone to start coming in more times per week, coming into the office," because they had just bought this new big building and he wanted his employees to utilize it.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that.
And we had a bit of an uproar, and I had a bit of an uproar because being able to work in your pajamas essentially,
Oh, it's nice.
yeah, it's super nice. And then
Crawls in my bed.
having to go into the office with a suit and tie, over pajamas, that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
So, but I do see the benefit of working in the office from time to time. Uh, you know, my job that I have now, I go in about 2 to 3 times per month, and it's nice being able just to meet with the team and really collaborate on certain aspects that we work on. And sometimes it's easier just rather than having a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting to just go in and hash it out over an hour or so, rather than uh, a virtual meeting. But
Yeah.
working remotely, it does have its benefits as well. I find like I can get some really solid work done without getting bothered at work from people asking questions because
Yeah.
I'm harder to reach, essentially.
That's true. That's true. There's pros and cons of both. I've heard arguments why hybrid is good, and I've heard arguments why hybrid is bad. I've heard hybrid is good because you do get that sense of like camaraderie and culture. And like if you need to work on something, sometimes it's easier to work on it at home. But if you need to work on it with your team, sometimes it's just easier to be in person. You're there. You're like, all right, let's just hash it out. Let's get it done. But I've also heard the argument of hybrid is essentially killing both aspects. It's killing the ability to be remote because you can't go anywhere you want in the world and be fully remote like you would be if you were fully remote. Like my wife and I, we could go live in Switzerland and I could still do my job, right? We could go live in Bali I say those two places because those are two places I've pitched to my wife, but they've been shut down because she has a garden to mend for. And I'm like, a garden? We're staying for a garden? Come on.
Just bring the garden with you.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, kibosh on the garden. Let's go to Switzerland. Anyway.
Yes.
And so I see the pros and cons of hybrid, and I kind of get the feeling that some people just have to make their own decision when running a company. That's part of the job of being a CEO, is you either make the decision of we're in the office or we're fully remote. And if we're doing hybrid, then you kind of have a mixed bag, right? You're going to have people who aren't productive at home, people who are productive at home. You can have people who won't be able to go wherever they want remotely. And I don't know, it's such an interesting aspect. I don't know where the majority of corporate life is going to go, right? I don't
Right.
know if most companies are going to turn to remote, to hybrid, or if they're going to stay in office. Certainly, they can still continue and function remotely. I think we've all realized that. It's just a matter of, is that aligned with your company culture, the people you hire, and their capabilities? I don't know. It's such an interesting aspect. The pandemic has brought this whole new aspect of work.
Yeah, it's definitely blurred those lines. And I think really for a company, they need to outlay what their expectations are. And I think employees will either be willing to adapt or will go find someone somewhere else where their expectations will align with the company's expectations.
Yeah,
And so,
that's fair.
I think with Elon here, him laying out what his expectations are, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't think that I could go into that model and enjoy working there, going into the office full time and being expected to work at least 40 hours because, sometimes you just don't get quite to 40.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
When I read that, I was like, at least, sir, I am at most 40
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, at most. Sometimes significantly less. So, yeah. So, yeah, I think expectations are a huge key here. Glad Elon's done this, and hopefully it works out for Twitter and he does work on changing his culture.
Yeah.
On his side projects, at least, that he seems, even though he's now really focused on Twitter, there has been some supposed updates for the Cybertruck. So,
triangle truck.
yeah, the triangle truck, interesting truck design that it is. I understand why they did that. However, it seems that their production is not going to be further delayed, and it should be as expected based on their latest date that they said that they would be coming. So in communication, Tesla seems to be sticking to their mid-2023 timeline, and it's starting to become more real than just words. And even though the report is quite vague and doesn't really introduce some new information, it didn't stop many from claiming that it means the Cybertruck production has been delayed. In fact, it suggests that Cybertruck production is ahead of schedule because of mass production. So I think that this is pretty interesting. They've been talking about this since 2019. So been quite a few years. And now that there's actually kind of a light at the end of the tunnel for all of those people that have made reservations for this truck, hopefully we could be seeing it middle of next year. In my opinion, I think they have a lot to compete with now that Rivian is out, and general consensus of the Rivian truck is very good.
Positive, baby.
So,
and Ford's Lightning, definitely.
Yeah, Ford's Lightning is out now. I've seen reviews for those, and reviews for that are extremely positive.
Yeah.
So Tesla's kind of got a big road ahead of it with the Cybertruck and trying to get into that market. What are your thoughts on this?
I just want to see one on the road. I I don't like the design. I cannot stand it.
Yeah,
It's
I don't either.
it's the one thing that told me not to do $100 down on a reservation fee. I don't have one reserved. I'm not disappointed and not feeling like I have FOMO. Um, I just want to see one on the road, and I want to see what the actual reviews are. I Conceptual versus actual are totally different, and I think I'm excited to hear that they're going to hold to that schedule. I am actually kind of surprised that we're seeing materials being shipped to the Gigafactory in Texas, and mass production could get them cranking out in 8 months or less. So that's great. That's phenomenal. I'm happy about that. I enjoy more competition. I'm a very competitive person myself. And when I think about the markets and as a consumer, I love the ability to see pros and cons of different options for me laid out. So with the Cybertruck coming out, I think it's going to be another great addition to the market, especially behind being like a Tesla vehicle with Tesla's badge and history and reputation. And whether that be good or bad, I think for the most part it's good. But I think overall this is great. I'm actually kind of surprised by it, to be honest. I was not expecting to see the Cybertruck in 2023. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens. Hopefully it
me
does.
either. Yeah, I think it's really cool that this might be coming out. I hope it's a success because that, I agree competition is a good thing. And the more
Mhm.
competition you have, the more innovation that can stem from it. So, them coming to market with this, I think it will be really great. I, I just can't get over the design. Not my favorite. I I
Yeah.
think it's ugly, but I understand
It's
why
it's so different. It's so
it's
different from
wild.
his Teslas. It's so different. It's truly a spaceship. Like it really
Yeah.
is.
I mean, I understand why they did this. I mean, the truck market is so saturated, and to be a new entrant in that, you really have to bring something new to the table. And so, by making such a modular and outlandish design, that gets people interested, who
That's true.
might not be truck fans or who are truck fans and are looking for something different. There's at least an option for that.
Yeah, that's true. On my business trip, we were discussing essentially selling. Okay. So one of the softwares that my company produces is the selling sales software. And we looked at an interesting case study in actual vehicle sales. This is in the 1900s, where I can't remember which company it was. It was an American company, so it was like GMC, Ford, someone like that. They previously used to take the average. They would put out designs for their vehicles, right? And they would do a sample size of feedback of what designs were liked, which ones were disliked, and they used to choose the design that was average liked. Okay, because they thought, oh, this is what the average of everyone liked. We'll go with that. They found out they approached it differently later on after many years, and I'm butchering this case study, but they approached it differently later on and said, what if we just did the one that has either liked, that's loved or hated the most instead of the average? And so they did the most controversial design, and their sales skyrocketed. And so I think that just supports your point that you can understand why, as a new entry to the market, they need to do something that separates themselves, and the design is part of that.
Yeah, and I mean, with this design, because it's so outlandish, it still has people talking in, 3 years later after this. If
Yeah,
it was a normal truck design, probably people wouldn't be talking about it as much. And
true. And it'll be easily identifiable on the road.
yeah,
My kids are always calling out Teslas. That's a Tesla. That's a Tesla. That's a Tesla. And they
that's a
only
sign
do
you need to
that.
get one.
Yeah, sounds like it. My kids only do that with cars that they love, right? A
Mhm.
Tesla, a Lamborghini. Ferrari. They don't know the difference between Lamborghini and Ferrari. If it's a race car, like any kind of race car, right? It could
Yeah.
be like some random, it could be like a Toyota Supra, and they'll be like, it's a Ferrari. And I'm like, that's not a Ferrari. Although it is a Supra, not a Ferrari. But yeah, so uh, yeah, the design, I understand it. I hate it. I can't stand it. It's probably the reason why I won't ever get one. But maybe when I see it in person, I'll change my mind. Maybe when I see how awesome it is, I'll change my mind.
Yeah, you might be the first one to get it. So
Maybe.
uh, all right, how about we get into Apple here? Got a couple of stories with Apple. One of the biggest ones that I thought was extremely interesting, kind of goes into what we've been talking about today with market, is Apple is now worth more than Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta combined, which is huge. So,
That's crazy.
this was at the beginning of last week, but they had Apple finished Wednesday's session with a 2.31 trillion market cap. Alphabet, Amazon, Meta were worth a combined 2.3 trillion. That's including Meta's meltdown, of course, for this year, and the other underperformance of the market.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's you shouldn't take away from the fact that how Apple is doing. Apple is doing phenomenally, right? They're growing. But the fact that they're bigger than, what was it, the other three, Alphabet, Meta, and Amazon combined, I think poor performance has led to decrease in valuation, decrease in stock price, and that's probably why. But it's interesting to see that Apple isn't taking as big of a hit, if not a hit at all, compared to the other three, right?
Yeah, it's crazy to me because I mean, obviously, market cap, that's not the best measure of performance of a company.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with this, obviously don't take that for what it's worth, definitely needing to do research on these companies to determine whether it's a good buy or whether, investing into their products is worth it. It's just an interesting metric of market valuation of it. And, even with Apple and how they set out their products, with their higher than usual price tag for their products or for products in that similar space, it's amazing how their brand has developed in such a way that consumers are still willing to invest into that and to stick with it in spite of any shortcomings that might be with their products compared to the competition.
Yeah, man. Apple has such a loyal fan base. And it's hard to nail down why. It's hard to nail down why they have such big loyalty.
I think it just might be iMessage. I mean that.
So I was out. Funny you mentioned iMessage. I was out to dinner 2 nights ago with two guys from the UK, clients of mine, and they were blown away that we don't use WhatsApp. Americans don't use WhatsApp. They're like, you don't use WhatsApp? I'm like, well, I have WhatsApp because I do have friends that are international, and that's how I message them. And they're like, no, and you're like, your day to day, you don't use WhatsApp. And I was like, no, I don't. They're like, what do you use? And the other one was like, they use iMessage. And I was like, yeah, I use iMessage. And they're like, what? Doesn't make any sense. WhatsApp is so much better. And I was like, hard for me to say because I don't use it. So I do think it's funny that you mentioned iMessage because in America, especially, it's a big thing. So
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, with the friends that we have in our gaming realm, I mean, we discriminate heavily against people that don't have an iPhone.
yeah, if you're green, you're not in the chat. We're
Yeah.
kicking you out. Like, don't even text us if you're green.
I mean,
Like,
we almost get to the point where we don't even play with them just because.
oh yeah, it's like I already assume you're garbage. you're a garbage video game player if you have green.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. It's just, that's me and my bias 100%, but that's just how it is. Like, I'm sorry. Nah, I'm honestly joking, but yeah, it is kind of funny to the extent of how like we are very much iMessage loyalists in our group chat.
Yes.
So
And you know, because of that, I'm probably going to stick with Apple for the remainder of my life unless they do something completely egregious to
yeah,
their iPhone. But the way that it just works with their ecosystem, that the way that they operate their products and their vertical integration, I think is really good. And they understand that vertical integration and how to use it in such a way that people want to keep coming back to their products and can't leave their
yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah. That you do break a valid point. I think a part of the reason why people are loyal is due to the user experience is so easy, and Apple does a phenomenal job of making sure the user experience is intuitive, easy, synchronized across their devices, but also provide while all the while providing like a top tier product and service, right? There are things I hate about Apple. I can't stand their computer pricing, and a lot of their other pricing I can't stand. I am disappointed in their innovation over the last decade. I feel like it hasn't been there. Um, but with that being said, the products they do come out with, I think, are the best user experience products. Even though it might not have the most innovative feature set, the user experience I have with Apple is much better than what I have with my other products that are Samsung, Android, Microsoft, Google, what have you. And for that reason, I love Apple, right? It's a love hate
Right.
relationship. It's a
Yes.
love hate relationship. So,
And speaking of love hate relationships, Apple is reportedly working on a way to simplify its Hey Siri trigger phrase to
yeah,
just Siri. So,
this is one of the hate. This is a hate for me.
yes, this is a super hate for me. I think Siri is absolute trash. And,
Yeah.
you know, just because I'm forced to use it on my iPhone, it just makes it really annoying. However, Apple is reportedly planning to simplify Hey Siri and just getting rid of that Hey command, and in the process of letting people just say Siri to trigger the voice assistant and get into it. You know, it's moving in that direction similar to how Amazon does with their Alexa, and it it's an interesting change. I think it's for the better because anything that we can do to make something a little bit easier to access a service is good as long as it works. And since Siri isn't a very common name, I'm pretty sure it, not a lot of people would have named their kid Siri as opposed to people who would have named their kid Alexa before Alexa was a thing. So, I think this has some benefits, even though Siri still isn't going to come to the level of Amazon or Google.
So I agree. I don't think it'll come to the same level. I disagree. I think this is a bad change.
Oh,
I
really?
think this is a bad change. Yes, because I will be talking about my services with Amazon in general, and it will trigger the freaking device. And that pisses me off. I'm like, I'm not talking to you, device. Shut it. I'm talking to my kids about not triggering you. Okay. Like I'm like explaining to my boys, like, boys, don't tell Alexa to show you image of a Demogorgon. And they're like, oh, cool. And then all of a sudden, Alexa turns on showing images of a Demogorgon. I'm like, no, I told him no, like stop. And I have my phone on me 24/7. And if I'm talking to my wife about Siri, boom, triggered. Siri's on, And I'm like, no, Siri, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my wife about you. It's like I can't talk behind their back. You know what I mean? Like I like to talk crap about behind people's backs. And I won't be able to do it about these devices because they're always listening. So I don't like it. Sorry, I don't like it. I know
No, those are some good points,
it's
because
one word. Hey Siri versus Siri. It's one word. I mean, really, people were that lazy. We can't say one word. I don't know.
I
That's
am
me.
that lazy. So if anything that can make my life lazier, I'm all up for that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I have those aspects of my life too, but in this instance, I'm sorry. I don't. My watch itself already gets triggered like by like listening to my conversations, and it'll it'll like respond, and mainly because I am left-handed, and so the button here gets like hit by my wrist,
touche.
and which Apple improve that, please make a left-handed watch or something because it's so frustrating when that happens. Anyway, so I just imagine that on my phone, you know, or sometimes it'll mishear you when you think you say Siri, but you said seared or, something like it. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But I feel as though like it's not a perfect system. And as a result, it could get triggered and it just bugs me. It's just a pet peeve of mine when these devices go off when I don't want them to.
Yes,
So
I agree with that. It's a pet peeve of mine too, especially like if you're watching a commercial and then it says Alexa in the commercial, and then it just triggers that. And like, I didn't even say anything. Why is
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Did you hear about the radio station situation with Alexa?
No, I didn't.
For all the podcast listeners, if you haven't turned off your Amazon devices already from us talking about it, please do so now. But so this radio host is talking about situations where kids have ordered things on Amazon, and the mom calls in is like, yeah, my daughter, she ordered a dollhouse set on our device, and she said Amazon order X so and so dollhouse set. And the radio listener was like, oh no, that's so hilarious. That's so funny. And the mom's like, yeah. And so she bought this doll set, showed up one day. Well, everyone who was listening to the radio show at home, they had their devices ordered a dollhouse set, dude. So you have like hundreds of people ordering this dollhouse set because they're listening to this radio show at home, and their Alexas are just triggered and ordering it. It was so bad. It was so funny. Oh man. And I feel
Oh,
like this can happen more with Siri, but
yeah. Siri's definitely not capable of that. She's
yeah,
barely capable of saying the weather
for real.
sometimes. So,
Also, side note, tell me if you agree with this. Biggest AI assistant letdown, Cortana
oh, yes.
letdown.
Huge letdown.
I had so much hope for an AI named Cortana to speak to me like Cortana does to Master Chief.
Yeah.
That's the nerd of me coming out.
They could have at least
Nerd
had
thing coming out.
they could have at least had the same voice.
I know that like you cannot name an artificial assistant Cortana and not have Cortana's voice. I'm biggest letdown.
Yeah, for sure.
So
So, I mean, Microsoft, I think they have some great products. They also have some huge letdowns. I
for
mean,
sure.
the Zune from
Oh, dude, I forgot about June.
I
Completely
mean,
forgot about it.
so for anyone that's
The
listening,
iPod killer.
yeah, if anybody is listening, doesn't know what the Zune is, please Google it. I I thought when it came out, it was a great product. However, it was not marketed correctly. It came out at the worst time, and just with everything, it died. But
That's so sad. I forgot about that, dude.
yeah, the Zune, Cortana, the Windows Phone that just never materialized.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah, Microsoft dropped the ball a lot.
yeah, it's amazing how, I mean, Microsoft, they're doing very well for themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
their market valuation, it's up there with Apple as well. And I think, what they're doing, they're on a good track. It's just amazing how many products they've had that have not materialized and yet still been able to come out on top. So I guess that shows them being able to overcome a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. How about we end on the voice enabled coding?
Oh, yeah. This is pretty cool. I thought this was pretty sweet. I'm not in coding. That's not my line of work. I dabble here and there with a little bit of it. And so I just thought this was a really cool article for those who are in this space because, you know, technology obviously incorporates coding. That's the backbone of technology. And so this is pretty cool. So GitHub, which speaking of Microsoft, GitHub is owned by Microsoft. They came out with this feature in they have a product called Copilot, which allows coders to essentially yeah, there it is. Hey, oh, that's too funny. Oh, everything's connected. So Copilot's feature allows these coders to essentially do voice commands to code, and then they can summarize a series of code into what that series of code is. That's a very common thing in coding. If you don't know coding, like if you make a code to do some kind of action, usually you summarize like what that action does. It's just like hygiene of the code, right? And so there's a couple different capabilities that it does, but essentially it's voice command for this feature set, and it allows you to essentially create code via voice command. And to trigger it, you have to say, "Hey, GitHub, I'm surprised that Microsoft doesn't change it to just GitHub. GitHub, summarize code."
They haven't gotten to that level yet that Apple's trying to.
Yeah, they haven't gotten to that level yet. They're like, all right, let's see how Apple does. Let's see what happens here. If it
Yes.
works, maybe we switch to that. If it doesn't work, then we're safe.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. I've dabbled a little bit in coding myself. I really love VBA coding with Excel.
Mhm.
Have a minor in computer science. Not that I've been able to do anything with that because I didn't go far enough. However, you know, this is really cool. I think being able to have another input of how you can get the code written. Sometimes with codes, you know, it can be really arduous to do a simple task that takes several lines of code
Yeah.
in there. And this could essentially shave that time in half by allowing you to say what it needs to do and essentially get the job done a lot faster. So I think this has huge potential.
Oh man. Yeah. I think that's the big thing there is that this is tip of the iceberg and what kind of potential could happen. And in my opinion, if this becomes even more and more complex, it will increase the speed of technology improvement and software development exponentially.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that usually takes weeks to just fix a bug could take hours.
Yeah,
And, you know, we could get bug fixes a lot faster. Video games could be coded a lot faster and we wouldn't have to wait.
that's the important stuff. That's the important
Wouldn't have
stuff.
to wait a whole year for a beta of Halo to finally get finished with a winter update. Nevertheless, I digress. You
You're
know,
like, Call of Duty has taken over.
yes.
That's where my
So,
focus is.
yeah, that's where my focus is now too. Um, you know, yeah, this has huge potential to be able to really cut time exponentially
Mhm.
and allow us to have greater access to technology.
Yep, I
So
agree.
I'm super excited for this. I really hope that it becomes mainstream and that there's some competition in this to create even greater innovation for this.
Yeah,
I'm really glad that Microsoft is behind this and that they're really pushing for this. This is
yeah,
just awesome.
yeah. I think it's really cool. Yeah, really, really excited to see what happens here. And it also just kind of makes me think I need to be, I need to up level my skill set in coding. So I dabble a little bit in SQL. just because my team does data analysis, and sometimes we need to pull reports directly from our data lake, and that requires SQL. And it just seeing where the world is going with technology for me and my kids, I know my kids are going to be in it. I know they're going to be involved with it. And if I want to be on par or even try and tutor them, mentor them with it, I need to know it. And so this is just a reminder, hey, I need to get involved in the game of coding. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, this, the world as it progresses, this is just going to become a lot more mainstream, and it'll be more in our everyday lives than it already is.
yep.
All right. Well, that is all we have for tonight. Thank you all so much for listening with us and sticking with us through the end. Make sure that you like this video if you liked it. Well, and if you disliked it, that other button seems to work all right. Make sure you send it to somebody that you disliked. Also, please subscribe and ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling button so you don't miss out on any notifications as new videos drop. Until the next time, stay classy, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.